I'll be 7 years in June. I have been assigned to the U.S. Marshal Task Force.
What's that task force called, sir?
So fast.
All right, I want to talk to you about your duties as on patrol. As a police officer, sir, are you trained in use of force?
Yes.
Are you trained in arrest procedures?
Yes.
Have you been trained in with respect to investigation matters?
Yes.
Have you been trained on when to investigate?
Yes.
Have you been trained on your duties as a police officer?
I have.
Have you been trained in shoot, don't shoot scenarios?
I have.
While on patrol, Officer Rosser, if you saw someone waving a gun around in a car, is that something your training tells you to investigate?
Objection, Your Honor. Overruled. You can answer.
Oh, yes.
Why so?
It's a crime occurring.
Now, during your course as a police officer, have you had people comply with you?
Yes.
Have you had people not comply with you?
Correct. I have.
Have you ever encountered over the course as an officer for 17 years anybody running away from you?
Yes.
What does training tell you what's that indicative of?
There's a reason why they're running, be it a warrant, illegal contraband, or a crime that just occurred that I might not be aware of at the time.
Do you consider that fleeing?
I do.
In your course as a police officer and with respect to your training, can someone facing away from you with a gun be a threat?
Yes.
How are you trained on dealing with that person with a gun facing away from you as a threat?
The same way I'm trained if they're facing me. As in, I'm sorry, I don't know.
That's
what
okay.
you're asking.
That was a poor question. I apologize for that poor question. With respect to your training, if somebody faces you with points a weapon at you, how are you trained to respond to that threat?
Do stop the threat.
To stop the threat?
Correct.
By doing what, sir?
Firing my weapon. Deadly force.
Thank you. You told the ladies and gentlemen subsequently you left patrol and you've been on that So Fast task force. I want to take you back to December 4th, 2020. Were you working for that So Fast task force on that day?
I was.
And who is that agency led by?
The U.S. Marshals.
Thank you. Do you recall that day?
I do.
What were you doing that day, sir?
We were working warrants.
You were
as the team was together. We were actively out working warrants that day.
Warrants that were adopted by the U.S. Marshals?
Correct.
Subsequently, did you have an occasion to get pulled to a warrant by SIU?
We did.
Tell the ladies and gentlemen of the jury what that means.
We were contacted by the Franklin County Special Investigations Unit. They had a new indictment, which was basically means a warrant was filed for somebody's arrest through Franklin County Common Pleas. And it was for felony charges. And they were actively sitting surveillance on a location and asked our assistants to come help them approach the residents and knock on the door and try to apprehend him. They thought he was inside the house.
Were they doing surveillance that day?
As far as I know, they were.
Who was that person that they contacted you about?
Kendall Barber.
Did you go to that house?
We did.
Where was that house?
On Estates Place.
And who was the team lead for the U.S. Marshals that day?
David Younglis.
So do you and your team subsequently get to the house?
We do.
All right, I want to pause for a second and discuss the equipment that you have available to you as a SOFAS member. Tell the ladies and gentlemen of the jury about the equipment.
We wear a tactical vest that has emblems that say U.S. Marshal or police on it, on the front and our backs. Our gun belts, and then if we're approaching a house, it's usually a shield. The lead guy at the door usually holds a shield at the door.
Do you have body-worn cameras, sir?
We did not.
What about your vehicle, Officer Rosser? What kind of vehicle did you have that day?
I believe it's a 2018 Dodge Ram.
And was that issued by the U.S. Marshals?
It was.
Did you have leads capability in that vehicle?
No, ma'am.
As a Columbus police officer, do you know what leads is?
I do.
Tell the ladies and gentlemen of the jury what leads is.
Forgive me because I don't know what the acronym stands for, but we can use leads to run a vehicle license plate or run somebody's name or date of birth and or social. And then leads will return that information to us to tell us either who the vehicle is registered to, the vehicle, like if it's on the correct vehicle, it'll give us, if it's like a 2020 Dodge Ram, it'll say that, or it could be like a fictitious tag that if it comes back to a different car that license plate is on. And it'll also check individuals for wants and warrants, if they have a valid driver's license. And if they gave us their information, and if you run them through leads, it'll tell us if their information is correct. Like if what they gave us is the correct information, as if they're, either they told us the correct stuff or they didn't.
And so your vehicle on December 4th, 2020, that Dodge Ram, was not equipped with leads, is that correct?
That's correct.
What about a radio?
It was not equipped with the radio.
But did you have a radio on you that day?
I did.
Tell the ladies and gentlemen of the jury about your radio.
I am assigned a Columbus Division of Police, just a normal radio that all of our officers have. My radio has all the CPD, which is Columbus Police, channels on it, but then it also has it was specially equipped to have the Marshals channel, so I can communicate with the task force and the Marshals on a different channel that normal Columbus Police does not have.
You took my next question from me about normal Columbus police officers. I want to take you back to December 4th, 2020 now. You mentioned that you were working a warrant with SIU. You got to that house. Were you able to locate Mr. Barber at the house?
We were not.
What do you do next?
Leave the house and go back down to the street, to our cars to leave.
Okay. When you're leaving, what are you doing?
We are back at my car and starting to de-gear, take our gear off.
Do you know if everybody took their gear off that day?
I don't.
You said you took your gear off?
I took mine off. The gentleman that I was working with, that was in my car riding with me, took his off, and then Jason Meade took his off. He was parked directly in front of me.
Who was that gentleman who was working with you that day?
Yorkowitz.
Yorkowitz?
Yorkowitz.
Okay. Now, when you leave that house, are you still a law enforcement officer, sir?
Yes.
So if you see some criminal activity, what do your duties tell you to do as a law enforcement officer?
To act.
What do you mean by act?
To take action as a law enforcement officer.
To investigate?
Correct.
Where do you go when you leave Mr. Barber's house?
We go northbound on the state, so we go straight, and then we turn left, which would be westbound on the Ferris Road.
Where to next, sir?
We're stopped at the stoplight at Ferris Road.
At Ferris and what other street is that? if you
Carl.
remember? Carl?
Yes, ma'am.
And what do you see when you're at that intersection?
I see Jason Meade's truck pull a U-turn from Ferris Road, like in Carl Road, come back towards us, which would be eastbound onto Ferris Road.
What was going through your mind? What did you think was going on at that time?
I just assumed he left something at the house or something dropped out of his truck.
Did he stop to communicate any of that with you?
He did.
What happens next?
Jason pulls up to the side of my truck, and I rolled my window down and asked him, like, what's going on? And Jason has like a scared and panicked look on his face, and it's like, we got to go. He's got a gun. He's got a gun.
What did you take that to mean?
I took it to mean that possibly County SIU was still sitting surveillance on the house, and somebody must have come out the house from Kendall Barber, where we had just come out the house with a firearm.
And so what did you do as a result of hearing that?
I did a U-turn on Estates Place and followed Jason's direction.
Was his voice louder than what we are now when he rolled his window down and told you what was occurring?
Yes.
Was your radio, you said you de-geared, right?
I de-geared.
So was your radio accessible to you?
It was not.
So do you have any idea what any type of radio traffic that was
I
occurring?
have none.
What kind of priority is it at this situation?
A high priority.
Why is that?
Somebody with a firearm.
Is that what your training tells you?
Yes, ma'am.
So you said you follow Jason, and what do you see next?
Jason turns right, which would be southbound onto Ferris Road.
And what happens then?
We follow him on the Ferris Road.
Okay. Does Jason stop at any point?
He passes Kendall's house where we just were and pulls over on the side of the road.
What's he doing?
He jumps out of his truck and he runs to the tailgate area.
You said he ran to the tailgate area?
Yes.
What's he doing at this point?
Opening his tailgate.
Did you see all of that?
Yes.
Do you pull up next to him? What are you doing?
I pull up behind him. not knowing what's going on, since we had just passed the house that I thought we were probably going back to, and hop out of my truck.
And what's going through your mind at this point, Officer Rosser?
Not sure, like, one, I don't have my gear on, and I don't know where this individual is with a gun.
Do you see anybody in the street?
Down the road, I see a male standing in the street next to a car.
Does Jason alert you to that male?
He says, down there, he's got a gun.
And what did you see next?
Jason taking his vest out and putting his vest on.
Did you look down the street to see if there was, in
I
fact,
did.
a person?
Correct.
And what did that person do?
Started to kind of like walk up towards the house.
Did he look at you?
I would say so, because I could see the front of him, so he was facing towards us.
Okay. You said he started to walk up toward the house. Tell the ladies and gentlemen of the jury what happened next.
I'm grabbing my vest from the back of my seat and throwing it on. The time I had an older vest, so it took a while for me to be able to close it all the way. And my gun belt, it has to use belt keeps to keep it attached to my duty belt, like underneath it. So I threw my vest on, and saw Jason get back in his truck and proceed southbound on Ferris Road towards the male that I just saw walking up into the grass. As Jason is going, I just jump back in my truck, follow Jason down Ferris Road. And as Jason starts to slow to come to a stop, the male picks up speed. Not a run at this point, but it's more of a quick step. And it's something that I've recognized from when I worked in patrol. It's kind of a hurried pace to get her out of get away. Like when you see a cruiser or a cop, it's more of like, I don't want to run because that's going to be suspicious, but I'm gonna pick up my pace to get out of view. And then as soon as Jason was like coming to a stop, it was like a sprint at the very end. He just took off out of view, and then we had pulled up.
So what happened after you had pulled up?
As we were pulling up, Jason's out of his truck and moving towards where the last place I saw the male go to. And then I hear, show me your hands, and then I hear gunshots.
How quickly is this all transpiring?
Spur of the moment. It's immediate right now.
I didn't hear this one. Spur of the moment.
Spur of the moment, sir, I'm sorry.
Okay, I want to slow that down, Officer Rosser.
Yes,
So you
ma'am.
said you pull up, you see the person sprint. Is that correct?
At the very end, it was a sprint.
Okay. And what did you hear Jason yell?
Show me your hands.
And then what did you hear?
Gunshots.
So you heard him say, "Show me your hands."
Yes, ma'am.
Is he identifying himself at this point?
I don't know. I didn't hear that.
At that point, officer, do you have time to go interview neighbors?
No, ma'am.
Do you have time to get a license plate?
No, ma'am.
So after you hear those gunshots, what is it that you do?
I take off running towards Jason's last known location, and my gun belt was in my hand. I end up pulling my duty gun from the holster and throwing my gun belt on the sidewalk and ran towards where I saw Jason last go.
You know why you threw your gun belt on the sidewalk?
I didn't need it. I just needed my firearm because I heard gunshots, and last I knew somebody had a gun. And at that point, I don't know if my partner's been shot or or there's a gun battle. I don't know what's going on.
May I approach the witness, Your Honor?
You may.
Let the record reflect that I am showing Mr. Rosser what has been previously marked for identification purposes as Defendant's Exhibit N. Do you recognize that, sir?
Yes, ma'am.
Was that 3996 Estates Place as it appeared on December 4th, 2020?
Yes.
Is it a fair and accurate copy of that house as it would have appeared?
Yes, ma'am.
Permission to publish, Your Honor?
You may.
Sorry.
Officer Rosser, I believe you have a laser pointer up at the witness stand. Can you point to the ladies and for the ladies and gentlemen of the jury as to where you saw Deputy Meade as you ran up to the house?
Yes. He would have been somewhere in this area.
Somewhere in that area?
Yes,
Don't
ma'am.
know exactly
I
where.
don't know exactly.
He certainly wasn't inside of the fence though, right?
Correct.
And that's because you saw him?
Yes.
Thank you. What happens now, officer?
I get to Jason, and he tells me, be careful, he's got a gun. So Jason and I simultaneously move up to the door, just how we've been trained when we're approaching a house or clearing a house. And we get to the door, and we both, I don't know, it was like, I would say it's like almost the same time we cleared the inside, and we saw Mr. Goodson on the ground.
Do you know if Mr. Goodson had a gun?
At that time, I did not.
Okay. What happens next?
Jason tells me the house isn't clear, and then rolls Mr. Goodson over by his feet. And I don't know which way he rolled him, but he rolls him over.
What did you see at that point?
I saw a firearm underneath his chest area, and the clip of the clip of a holster in his waistband.
I want to back up a little bit. You said that Jason told you the house wasn't clear. Is that a priority at that point?
Yes.
Why so?
Don't know who's in the house or what this is out of. Don't know what's going on. Don't know if there's another threat in the house.
So do you take any steps to ensure the safety of that house?
Yes. One, I turn my radio on and hit my banner, which immediately puts me onto the Columbus Police channel, like whatever my home channel would have been at the time. It moves me to that channel, gives me the air. So I radio to dispatch, letting them know, like start us a medic, start us cars. And there's the main door that goes into the house was up against a wall, like from the door that we had went into on the side. So the door wouldn't move, so I kicked the door open, and so it swung all the way open so I could see into, like, I guess it would be the living room area of the house.
What did you see when you saw the living room area of the house?
I saw a gentleman sitting on the couch with like a small child and then a Rottweiler.
And what did you do as a result of that?
I gave him loud verbal orders.
To do what, sir?
Honestly, I don't know, like show me his hands or stay where he's at.
Could you have used profanity in that?
Of course.
Why so?
Highly stressful situation and to gain compliance.
Do they do that?
Yes.
What happens next?
Yorkowitz, I notice him and tell him to take position, like to hold where I'm at. And Jason yells to me, the kitchen is not clear. So I go past around Mr. Goodson and take position in the kitchen area directly in front of him.
And what do you see in front of the kitchen area? Anything?
There's another, I guess the kitchen opens up into like another hallway, and all I can see is like a wall, and it branches off to like the left and to the right, so I don't know where extra doors are into the house. But then I have two females that run out different times, and I believe a pit bull also comes running out.
And what do you do with them?
Same thing I did to the gentleman in the living room, scream at them to get back.
Okay. And do they comply?
They run back and forth, but yes, they stay back, but they keep coming back and forth.
Why is that important to make sure nobody gets into the kitchen?
It's a crime scene.
Al, I want to, you mentioned you saw, when Mr. Meade rolled the body over, you said you mentioned a gun, you said, correct?
Yes, ma'am.
I think you also were telling the ladies and gentlemen of the jury that you saw a holster clip.
Correct.
Tell the jury what you mean by a holster clip.
So it was like an inside the waistband holster, which I wear every day, and it's to help you conceal a firearm, and you secure your firearm into the holster, and then you place it inside your pants between like your belt and your body, and it secures your firearm so it doesn't fall out.
So the cloth part of the holster, is that against your body when you're wearing a holster?
For that typical holster, for inside the waistband, yes.
Are you familiar with that kind of holster?
Yes.
What kind of holster do you carry?
Inside the waistband.
Okay. You said the function of the holster is to hold it in place, correct?
Correct.
Is it also is the holster also meant for safety purposes?
Yes, so you don't have an accidental discharge.
Now, you said when a gun goes inside of the holster like you carry every day, it's meant to not fall out.
Correct. It's meant to, like, the friction from your body and then like your belt being tightened against that, and the holster keeps it secure against your body.
Have you ever fallen with your holster in, sir?
I have.
And has the firearm ever come out?
No, ma'am.
How many times have you fallen with your holster in?
I mean, I don't know, maybe 5, 6, 7, yeah.
During the pursuit of anybody?
No, but just normal everyday activities with
Okay.
being at work, yeah.
And you said the gun has never come out.
Correct.
All right. After you see the gun in the holster, you mentioned when you were clearing the front of the kitchen, you continued to see two females run back and forth, right?
Yes, ma'am.
What do you remember next happening, sir?
I remember Todd Barnhart walking in into the same door that we came in, and I yelled at Todd to start CPR.
Why is that?
The preservation of life.
Okay. Who is Todd Barnhart?
He was a TFO on our team at the time.
Was he at Mr. Barber's house also?
Yes,
Okay. So he was working with you on December 4th.
he was.
Okay. So you tell Todd to start CPR. Are there any precautions that you take with respect to the person laying on the ground before Todd is able to start CPR?
Typically, they would be handcuffed.
Why? Tell ladies and gentlemen of the jury why that person would be handcuffed.
Something we've been trained on from day one. They're still considered a threat, and there's obviously a firearm also nearby, so that person is still considered a threat, no matter what it may appear to anybody that just shows up. You handcuff to make sure they're, like, they don't have use of their hands, so they are no longer the threat that they were.
So is that standard on every scene you've been on with?
Yes.
Okay. Do you know are you familiar with the +1 rule?
I am.
Tell ladies and gentlemen of the jury what the +1 rule is.
The +1 rule is you find one firearm on somebody, you look for a second, because chances are there is a second firearm. And I've personally arrested individuals with 2, 3 guns, like, on their person or nearby to their person. So you always look for that second firearm, because sometimes they'll have one in their, like, waistband, and then they'll have a second one on their ankle. You have to take that precaution.
So is that the reason why you handcuff that person?
Correct.
Okay. Eventually, does anybody else from your team show up?
The rest of the team does show up.
And eventually, are they able to clear the house?
I believe that the So Fast team clears the residence.
When's the next time you saw Jason?
I think before somebody drove him from the scene,
Okay. How do you exit the house, sir?
through the same door that I came in.
Would that have been the side door? Okay. Now, are you cognizant of trying not to contaminate the scene at that point?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. I want to talk to you about the scene out front. Do you eventually make it out to the front of 3996 Estates?
Correct, I do.
Tell ladies and gentlemen of the jury what you observed in the front of the house.
So at this time, Columbus Police has responded to the scene. So there's multiple uniformed police officers and cruisers. And then I see a group of people who, I didn't know who they were, but I knew they were in the house from when the team had cleared people out, standing in the front of the house, down by the street around the vehicle, like congregating together.
What does typical protocol tell you to do in those situations when you have people who may have witnessed something congregating together outside of a house?
They're all considered witnesses or potential witnesses. You separate everybody. Everybody goes into a different vehicle, like a different cruiser with an officer, and they're not on their phones. They're separated, so they're not coming up with similar, like trying to come up with a story together or contaminate their story with, oh, I saw this or I saw this. And then that person just may not even do it intentionally, but absorbs somebody else's story into their story, even though they didn't mean to.
Did that happen in this situation?
They were all together, correct.
Basis? She's asking, what these people were saying.
No, she was asking whether he separated the witnesses.
Oh, I'm sorry. Okay.
Was it your job to separate the witnesses?
No, ma'am.
Do you know if they were separated?
They were not.
Okay. Eventually, sir, are you interviewed about what you saw on December 4th?
I am.
Were you interviewed that day?
Yes.
By who?
I believe Detective Wooten,
Detective Wooten. Is he with Columbus Police?
Columbus Police Homicide.
Eventually, were you interviewed by the FBI?
Yes, ma'am.
Do you remember when that was?
I want to say April.
April of the following year?
April of 21, I'm sorry, yes.
No, that's
Yeah,
okay.
yeah.
How about these gentlemen right here? You ever talk to any one of them?
No, ma'am.
May I have a moment, Your Honor?
Yeah.
Thank you so much, Mr. Rosser. That's all the questions I have for you at this point. I'm sure Mr. Merkel will get up and ask you some questions
Thank you,
as
ma'am.
well.
Any questions? Yes, cross-examination?
Yes, Your Honor. Good morning, Officer Rosser.
Good morning, sir.
Let me see if I can refresh your memory. You and I have spoken in this capacity, have we not?
At the federal building?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay, so perhaps want to amend that you've never spoken with me.
Yes, I'm sorry. Yeah, we've spoken to the similar proceedings like this,
Thank you.
yes.
Now, the first time that you ever saw a gun with Casey Goodson is when Mr. Meade ruled, Mr. Meade ruled him over, correct?
Yes, sir, you're correct.
So when you were on Ferris Road, you didn't see Casey with a gun.
No, I did not see Casey at all.
Okay? You didn't notice it.
No, sir.
And when you were on Estates at the, I think, right around Sale Road, where Mr. Meade had stopped and you stopped, you didn't see Casey with a gun.
Correct.
In fact, you saw him with a plastic bag, right?
I did not see that.
You didn't notice that either. Is it safe to say that you were pretty confused about what was going on
I was
at
confused.
that point?
Yes.
So even though Mr. Meade, as he rolled by you on Ferris, spoke with you, he wasn't, you remained confused. He didn't clarify exactly what he'd seen. Is that correct?
No, it was just he's got a gun.
You know, and you're thinking, okay, this is Kendall Barber, he's come back, and we got to get back over there.
Correct.
And you held on to that thought until he proceeded by the Barber house, correct?
Yes.
At that point, you're saying, well, to yourself, I guess, or thinking to yourself, well, I guess it's not Kendall Barber, and now you're again confused. Is that correct?
Correct.
You didn't activate your lights or sirens, right?
I do not remember.
Okay, but your vehicle was capable of that,
Yes.
and that's one of the Marshall-owned vehicles.
You're correct.
Maybe not the same model as Mr. Meade's, but owned by the Marshal Service and equipped with lights, siren, correct?
That's correct.
Also has a PA system, doesn't it?
It does, but it works spottingly, but yes, it does.
It does have it, though.
Correct, it does.
And when you pulled up there at Sale Road and state's place. Mr. Meade didn't say, hey, get on your PA system and tell that guy to stop down there, did he?
No.
And he didn't suggest to you that you put your lights and sirens on, or do you remember?
I do not remember.
Okay. Let's get the video of the snippet of. I'm going to show you a video here that's previously been marked as State's Exhibit 8G. And I want to see if you can identify some of the vehicles that are depicted in it. I'm not a good window, so let me step over here.
Good to go.
Okay, let's watch the video. This is the video will pan, and let's watch the video, and then I have some questions.
Sure.
Okay. All right. We got a medic on scene, but
Yeah, I know. That's what I said. Don't send him in yet.
okay. Tell them to stay. Tell them to stay. Come out this way, folks. Come out. Hey, come out this way. We'll send them to you. Go back this way. Ma'am, come out. Start going out.
Okay. Now, this is obviously after the shooting,
Yes, sir.
and do you recognize the lineup of trucks in the street there?
First two.
The first two? And the first one being whose?
Jason's.
I'm sorry?
I believe the first one's Jason's, and the second one, I believe, is mine.
Okay, and which would be the order that you guys
The same order.
would have been in?
That order.
Did you notice whether your lights were activated?
I don't think so, but it's
Well, we can
honestly,
play
it's
it
hard
again.
to tell
Play it
from that.
again so you can.
Okay. All right. We got a medic on scene, but
Yeah, I know. That's what I said. Don't send him in yet.
okay. Tell them to stay. Tell them to stay. Come out this way, folks. Come out. Hey, come out this way. We'll send them to you. Go back this way.
I would say probably not.
Well, do you see him flashing?
I don't see him flashing.
You see Mr. Meade's flashing, don't you?
I could see the taillights on this, watching the second time.
You saw his flash?
Correct.
And did you notice at the start they weren't flashing?
No. I'm sorry.
Play it again.
Are you seeing it on your screen there?
Yeah, but it's kind of blurry. I'm trying to watch both at the same time.
Okay. All right. We got a medic on scene, but
Yeah, I know. That's what I said. Don't send him in yet.
okay. Tell them to stay. Tell them to stay. Come out this way, folks. Come out. Hey, come out this way. We'll send them to you. Go back this way. Ma'am, come out.
You see it now?
Yeah, I saw what you're talking about.
They weren't flashing, and then they were.
Yes.
And did you recognize that as Mr. Meade going to his truck early in the video?
No, honestly, I wasn't even paying attention to that. I was looking for lights. I'm
Play it one more time.
sorry.
Your Honor, objection, he's testified.
Overruled, just see if we can get this done.
Okay. All right. We got a medic on scene, but
Yeah, I know, that's what I said.
Did you recognize that as Mr. Meade going to the truck?
I can't positively identify him from this video.
Did you hear the voice?
Voice sounds like him.
Okay. All right. Go ahead.
okay. Tell them to stay. Tell them to stay. Come out this way, folks. Come out. Hey, come out this way. We'll send them to you. Go back this way. Ma'am, come out. Start going out.
Okay. So I understand you can't positively identify that as Mr. Meade, but whoever that was obviously activated the lights on that first truck. Isn't that correct?
It appears that way.
Okay. Would that be part of clearing the house?
As for clearing the house, no. More of a traffic control.
There, you know, the undercover lights or the light package on the truck is there for when you're moving through traffic, right?
Correct.
You know, there would have been no reason to go to the truck and activate the lights, would there?
There would be.
What would it be?
One, it's a crime scene to shut down the road.
Well, you saw cruisers on the road.
Correct. There's cruisers, but we would still activate it. He's at kind of almost like a T intersection there. You would
Okay.
still activate it.
Okay. Your truck didn't have leads capability,
That's correct.
but you had a radio to CPD that gave you leads capability. Isn't that correct?
That's correct.
Okay. When you were at Sale and Estates Place, did Mr. Meade say, call leads, let's find out whose truck or whose vehicle that is?
No.
Okay, you weren't directed to do that,
No,
and you didn't do that.
I did not.
I think you testified on direct that when you see criminal activity, it's your obligation to investigate.
Correct.
When you're working in a plainclothes capacity and you want to inquire of someone, you want them to know you're a police officer. Is that correct?
That's correct.
And perhaps the best way is to bring in a marked cruiser with an officer in uniform. Isn't that correct?
When you have time.
Well, that's not my question. Isn't that the best way?
That's correct, is to have
That's
a
the best way
cruiser.
to do
Don't
it.
speak over each other.
I'm sorry.
I'm sorry, Your Honor.
Apologies, sir.
Okay. And there was no effort here to bring in a marked cruiser or a uniformed officer. Is that correct?
That's correct, sir.
Now, when you pulled your truck up there, was your window up or down?
I do not remember.
And it's you're the driver of your vehicle, and you had a passenger who was Joseph Yorkowitz, correct?
That is correct.
Had he gotten out at Sale and Estates?
Yes,
So he had been donning his gear as well?
that is correct.
Okay, and what I'm gathering from your testimony is you got out, you were putting your vest on, and before you could complete that process, Mr. Meade was back in his truck and he was heading down.
That's correct.
Had Yorkowitz gotten his vest on?
I do not know.
Okay. Your attention was where?
Down the street.
Okay. And it was at the point that Mr. Meade got back into his truck and started down the street, all you saw was an individual walking up the front yard. Is that correct?
Correct.
And I think you said that at some point his pace quickened.
It did.
It was not a run, it just quickened.
Not at the beginning, it quickened. At the end, it turned into a run.
Okay. Maybe I misunderstood. I thought you basically put it into three categories.
Yes.
That it started with a walk.
Correct.
It quickened. At what point, at what spot was he when it quickened?
Like what spot in the yard or
Yes.
that I couldn't tell you. I wasn't looking at the spot. I was watching just his
Okay.
like how he was moving and
It's
where
not
he was.
a very big front yard.
No, it's not. But I wasn't paying attention to where he was at. I was watching his movements and to see like where he was headed.
Okay. Well, obviously he was still in your sight when it became a run.
Right. It was the very end, like the very end.
And I think you said it was a sprint.
I might have.
Well, was it a sprint?
It would have been turned into a sprint. It was like the last part that I saw was like the end of the taking off, like to run.
So what, you saw his first stride?
First stride and a half, like
Okay.
the end, like
So
Out
from
of view.
that, you concluded that it was a sprint,
I would.
okay? And the reason that you only saw a stride or a stride and a half was because he disappeared on the side of the house. Is that correct?
Yes, my view was I didn't have the view from that
Yeah,
point.
from your perspective, all you could see was the front of the house up to the corner of the front of the house, and he disappeared from sight going, I guess, that would be east, correct?
You're correct, sir.
And you, I'm sure didn't know at the time, but I would assume eventually recognize that that's where the sidewalk takes you, isn't it? There's a
Yes.
sidewalk that
Yes, you're correct.
goes around the house to the east.
Correct.
Okay. And he walked across the yard, got on the sidewalk, and followed the sidewalk. Is that right?
I don't know.
Well, you were there. You were the one that was watching.
I wasn't
Speak
watching.
over each other.
I'm sorry,
You ask
guys.
the question and let him answer it.
I wasn't watching if he was in the grass or the sidewalk. I just saw his path.
How many shots did you hear?
I couldn't tell you.
Well, was it just one?
It was like a rapid fire, like a rifle is all I could tell you. That's all I know.
Okay. And it was after you heard the shots that you heard Meade say, "Show me your hands, show me your hands."
That's incorrect.
Okay, I'm sorry. I didn't mean to mislead. say it again, the way it went.
I heard Jason yell, "Show me your hands, show me your hands," and then I heard gunshots.
Yeah, I'm sorry, I had it reversed. It was first, show me your hands, then the gun burst. Did he say, show me your hands after?
Not that I heard.
Okay. So the commands stopped after the rifle fire.
As far as I know, yes.
And were you in your truck, or had you gotten out of your truck?
I think I was just getting out,
Because you got the door open and you're stepping out of the.
like hand on the handle, getting out of my car.
Okay. And your radio is where?
It would have been in my vest, like in here, like
Okay, so
in a
there's
pouch.
like a pocket or
There
something?
is. Yeah, it's like a attachment.
Is that the only radio that you carry? I mean,
That's the only one that I actually carry, correct.
do you have a second radio that?
I do now.
Well, bad question on my part.
No, you're fine.
On December 4th, was that the only radio that you had?
I believe it was.
So you didn't also have a handset separate from what you had in your vest?
No.
Okay. But I mean, these are, I guess let's describe for the ladies and gentlemen, the jury in general, the types of radio that we're talking about. It looks like a walkie-talkie kind of thing, or is it smaller, bigger?
It's probably that, it's probably that wide, and it's probably that tall.
And you can carry it in your hand.
You can carry it in your hand, or like an ear attachment, you can attach to it.
And that's I would assume the typical way you wear your radio. You rather to keep your hands free, you've got a pocket to put it in, and then an earpiece that you attach.
That's correct.
Okay. And when it's tuned to a particular channel, then you don't have to do anything with the radio to talk on that channel, do you?
No.
I mean, it's going to broadcast whatever you're saying when it's turned on, or do you have to?
Yeah, when I hit the mic.
Okay, so you still, is the mic separate from the radio?
If I'm using the earpiece, yes.
Okay, well, if you're not using an earpiece.
Then it's, like if I don't have like the attachment for the, I guess it's like a mic itself that you can clip around, like they wear in like for patrol, then you would clip that, or on the side of the actual walkie-talkie, you can press the button and it still airs.
Okay, so there's also a mic built into the walkie-talkie, but there you would have to have it in your hand, push the button to talk on it.
That's correct.
Okay, so then at least one hand isn't free because you're carrying the radio.
That's correct.
Okay. And I think you said that because yours is a Columbus Police radio, you have the Marshal's channel on it, and I'm assuming there's a knob somewhere where you switch from channel to channel on the radio. Is that correct?
That's correct.
And you, when you're obviously working so fast, you've got it tuned to or set on the Marshal's channel, so that you don't have to switch it every time you want to make a broadcast on the radio, correct?
That's correct.
But you mentioned a banner button, and what the banner button does, and that's just something that you push, and it'll immediately switch the channels over to the Columbus Police channel, so now you're in contact with you know, the Columbus Police's radio network, you know, I know they've got various ones, but that way you're then in communication with Columbus Police Radio.
Correct.
And as I'm understanding your testimony after the shooting, you hit the banner button and aired that, what did you air?
Verbatim, I don't know, but it would have been along the lines of shots fired.
Did you hit a code or use a code like officer in trouble or anything?
Hitting the banner is already like a officer in trouble, which is a 10-3. I might have aired 10-3. I don't remember my
Okay.
specific
But-
words.
But just hitting the button, that signals to the radio room,
Yep.
officer in trouble, so that they can quickly respond and get help on the way.
That was correct.
Okay. And did you hit the banner right after you heard the shots? Or did you, had you moved towards the house when you hit the banner?
No, I didn't hit the banner till we got up to the house and I saw Mr. Goodson.
Okay, so when you were out of your truck, and heard the shots, you didn't hit the banner. You waited until you were up at the house and you saw that Mr. Goodson you actually saw Mr. Goodson before you hit the banner, is that correct?
Correct.
Okay. Now, I'm sure I was probably the only one confused, but
Mr. Merkel, be careful when you're going by, you're hitting the microphone. Yes.
I'm sorry. After the shooting, you run to the house, probably sprint, right? And you testified that you dropped your gun belt, just pulled your gun because you didn't need the gun belt. You didn't need to have that on. What you needed was your weapon. And when you got around the side of the house, you saw Mr. Meade, correct?
Correct.
And did you see Mr. Goodson at that point?
No.
Okay. Did you alert Mr. Meade that you were there?
I assumed you saw me.
You just assumed he saw you. You didn't say, I'm right behind you.
No, I just ran up to him.
Okay, when you say ran up to him, are you side by side? Did you run in front of him?
Well,
Did you stand right behind him?
I'd say probably to his side.
Okay. And I'm guessing you don't know whether it was his right side or his left side that you ran to.
I don't.
Okay. So, but side by side, the two of you approached the door?
Correct.
Okay. And there's a small porch or stoop that you step up to from the sidewalk, isn't that correct?
Yes.
And when you entered the house, did you enter first? Did Mr. Meade enter first? Or did you guys go through the doorway side by side?
We didn't initially just enter the house. It was, we cleared that immediate area, like how we're trained to clear before entering a room.
Okay.
And that's where we saw Mr. Goodson.
Okay.
Right there.
You cleared what immediate area?
Just around that door, like the entryway.
The entry?
To my left was blocked because of the door. So cleared to the right, which would have been the kitchen, and straight ahead was a wall. So it would have been to the kitchen area, because because that was the open space.
Okay. So when you use the term cleared, are you meaning that visually you were looking in those areas to see if there were people or see what existed there?
That's correct.
Okay. And when you say cleared, from your visual inspection, you recognize that you could move into the house because no one was there other than Mr. Goodson on the floor.
Yes and no.
I'm talking about just the.
Again, don't speak over.
I'm sorry, Judge. I'm trying to make it clear that he understands what I'm saying.
Jill's gonna scream at me.
Yeah, I don't want to think about her thoughts of me. But I'm just trying to understand exactly what movements you and Mr. Meade made at that point.
So the initial was we visually, like, couldn't see left, so we cleared right. That's where we saw Mr. Goodson.
Okay? And I'm sorry to interrupt you. Again, you know, and I want you to use the language you're comfortable with, but when you say clear, basically you mean we've looked there.
Visually clear. Like,
Visually.
we don't know it's clear, but it's just a visual.
Right.
I do not see a person or a
Right.
threat at this time.
You haven't physically done anything over
No,
there.
it's just visually what we see is there's no threat right
Okay.
there, right now.
Yeah, I'm fine. I just want to make sure we're all understanding what you're doing. Okay. So you look to the right,
Correct.
you see Mr. Goodson on the floor, don't see anybody else.
Correct.
Okay. And then that's when you look to the left?
No, the door's already blocking me.
Okay.
So I can't look to the left.
Well, when you look to the left, the door is,
Right there.
okay. Let's,
You doing okay, Jill? Yes, you may. What? Take about a 10-minute recess. Hold on. Do not discuss this case among yourselves. Do not permit anyone to discuss it with you or in your presence. is your duty not to form or express an opinion on the case until it's finally submitted to you. About 10 minutes.
All rise.
Gary's overcoat is still in.
What?
Gary's overcoat is still in Judge Munson's room.
Is that where they're gonna take them?
That's our understanding.
I thought that's where they were taking, so somebody might wanna.
We'll go ask Courtney. Where is it, Gary?
It's just
in the
on,
back
it's just
in
on
the
a
corner
chair.
on a chair.
Just on a chair.
If you ask Courtney, she can go in. Everyone can have a seat. I was fearful you were gonna come in with me.
They were laying right here.
Oh, those are mine.
Okay,
Those are yours.
that's fine. I wasn't sure whether.
Sorry, I think when we were sorting it.
I didn't want to stump them away if you had about.
Here in that jury room, so we gotta move all the jurors over to, was it part of Patricia's jury room? Going good for a week, huh?
Maybe it wasn't such a good idea to have windows in the jury room.
Yeah. Other than right before his testimony, my screen had logged off. It's like, if I don't keep it on, then I have to sign in. Wasn't 5 hours. What was Meade, an hour? Hour and 15. No, good. Just go to sleep, and when there's an objection, I can look down and see. Everyone can have a seat. Any further cross-examination?
Yes, Your Honor. We, yeah, the Alma. Officer Osser, this is what's been admitted as State's Exhibit 2T. That's the area that you're talking about that was cleared first, right?
Correct.
And I think, you said you were able to look to the right, which would be into the kitchen, is that correct?
Yes.
And the left was blocked by what we see as the edge of the, there's an inside door there. And I got a better picture of it. This is 2PP, which has been admitted into evidence. And that door, if I'm understanding your testimony correctly, when you're at the storm door there, you could see into the kitchen, but that door was at like a 90-degree position, and you couldn't see into the room that where the.
What door are you? Can you point out what door you're talking about?
I'm sorry. This door here. Is that correct?
That's correct.
And I believe you said you kicked the door open.
I did.
So you moved it from that 90-degree position to roughly the position it's in now.
Correct.
And at that point, you could see into the living room area. Is that correct?
That's correct.
So what's been admitted is State's Exhibit 2MM, and we're standing back in the living room area, and you're seeing a portion of the living room, is that correct?
I believe so.
Okay. Now, is this where you encountered the man holding a small child?
So that was the door that I kicked right there, correct?
Correct.
Okay, so it would have been the room that picture is in, correct?
Yeah, I mean, you can see the storm door there, and so after you cleared the kitchen, I assume you had to step up into the landing to kick the door open, is that right?
Correct.
Okay, so you're stepping right up in this area, and that's where you kick the door open.
I believe so.
Okay. When you stepped up in there, did you step up there first? Was it Mr. Meade, or did the two of you step in there together?
I do not remember how that worked.
Okay, okay. But you know you're the one that kicked it this way.
Correct.
And as you said, you encountered a man holding a small child.
Correct.
And he's somewhere out in this room here.
I think there was a couch. I think he was sitting on a couch.
I've got another shot of the room. This is 2 triple N. I think that covers the rest of the room.
I pictured it as a couch, but yeah, he was in that over by the blue tote.
Yeah, looking at the pictures, you can see that there wasn't a couch.
No, in my mind, I'm picturing that
Okay.
being a couch and him sitting on a couch.
But you instructed him or commanded him in unambiguous terms to not come forward, right?
Correct.
And basically to remain in the position he was, or remain in the area that he was, and perhaps sit down on the floor.
Correct.
Okay. So that was you that gave those instructions to him?
Correct.
Okay, where was Mr. Meade at that point?
It would have been either right behind me or right to my right.
Okay. Okay, so once that had occurred, I believe you then turned your attention to the kitchen?
That was all like happening like that. So I kicked
I
it.
realize it's happened a lot.
Don't
I'm
speak over
sorry.
each other. This is not a conversation. You ask a question, he answers.
Yeah.
I kicked the door, gave orders, and at the same time, Yorkowitz is there, and I have Yorkowitz step up, and I go back to my right, which was in the kitchen area.
Okay, so by the time you'd kicked the door and given the command, you recognize that Yorkowitz is right there on the stoop, and you directed Yorkowitz in to watch that area. And then you turned your attention to the kitchen.
Correct.
So when you turned your attention to the kitchen, is Mr. Meade in the kitchen at that point?
No, he's right there, still
Okay.
where we were.
And I believe you said that Casey was lying face down. Could you see his hands?
He was face down when we first came into, like, when we first got to the entry, the doorway.
Right.
Third right. That's when he was face down.
Okay.
Jason rolled him over prior to me kicking the door.
Okay. We're out of.
I'm sorry.
I'm out of sequence. You're not. So, Jason, Mr. Meade, before you were able to check the living room, had already rolled Mr. Goodson over to his back. Is that correct?
Correct.
And you don't recall which way, what direction he rolled him?
I
Just
can't remember at this time.
just that he rolled him.
Yes.
And I believe your testimony was that he did it by rolling him, grabbing his leg.
I think it was either one or both legs and rolled them. I don't
Okay,
know.
all right. But it wasn't up in the head area that he
No.
rolled him from? Okay. And so once you positioned Yorkowitz, now you're turning your attention back over to the kitchen area, and Mr. Meade has already rolled Casey over. Is that when you first saw a gun?
When he first rolled him over, yes.
Okay. And so tell us what you did at that point.
After the door was
Yes.
kicked, stepped across where Casey was lying, stepped across and went in front of him and held the rest of the house that came
Okay,
into
so-
the kitchen.
So you had to kind of step over him to get
I don't know if it
further
was,
into the kitchen?
I don't know if it was physically step over or step just around. I don't know how the semantics on how I stepped, but that area, yes, I had to step through.
One moment, Your Honor. Oh, okay. Yeah, can we, I'm sorry. That's here. Okay, I'm gonna show you what. I can read my writing. Okay. I'm going to show you what's been marked as states, or what's been introduced as State's Exhibit 8B. And this is quite a bit later, but might help us get some positioning here. This is you, correct?
That's correct.
And so to orient you, the picture's coming from the doorway to the kitchen that you passed through. You understanding that?
Yeah, the door, yeah, where we entered the house,
Okay.
correct.
So to get to that, and that's the position that you took up that we're talking about right at this point.
You are correct.
So you had to step over or around Casey to get to that position. Is that correct?
That's correct.
Okay. Well, actually grabbed the wrong picture. 8A, I guess that's the position that Casey was in after Mr. Meade rolled him over. Is that right?
I believe so. It's hard to, but yes, I believe so.
Feet towards the entryway, head on into the kitchen. Is that correct?
That's how he was prior to, like when we first got up to the door.
Yeah,
And
only he would have been on his stomach, right?
that's correct.
And you described that you noted a weapon on the floor when Casey was rolled over, and that had been under his chest area?
That's correct.
Okay. Upper chest?
Yeah, like pectoral area.
All right. And you also described a holster that you saw in his waistband. Is that correct?
That's correct.
Now, you didn't take the holster out and examine it at any point?
Never touched it.
Okay. So it's just what you observed in his waistband?
You are correct.
You said that you wear a holster in your waistband. Where was this located in his waistband?
I believe the front, same place where I carry mine.
Front?
Front right.
Okay. And but you didn't pay attention, or not pay attention, you didn't note the quality of the holster, whether it was a high-quality holster or a relatively inexpensive kind of cloth-like holster, did you?
I did not.
Does council want to approach? You can stay there.
In fact, Your Honor, I am done. Thank you, officer.
Thank you, sir.
Any redirect?
Yes, Your Honor, briefly. May I proceed?
You may.
Mr. Merkel asked you about Deputy Meade not telling you to get on the radio, correct?
Correct.
But he did tell you what he saw, right?
Correct.
He told you what was going on?
Yes.
He told you that person has a gun, right?
Correct.
Mr. Merkel asked you a series of questions about what you didn't do. Do you remember him asking, well, you didn't get on your radio and call into leads, right?
Correct.
Do you have time to do that?
Do not.
Mr. Merkel asked you about the best way to handle an undercover operation, that being with a marked cruiser. Do you recall him asking you that?
I do.
Did you have time to call in a marked cruiser at this point?
Did not.
Do sometimes things happen like this while you're undercover?
A lot of times.
Did you even have time to put your gear on?
No.
Mr. Merkel talked to you about these 3 stages of the person and how it escalated from walking to sprinting. Did this happen quickly?
It did.
Was this person progressing slowly through the stages?
It wasn't slowly, but it all was transpiring like at the same time. It wasn't taking time in each little part. It was all movements that were happening at once.
One fluid action.
Correct.
Mr. Merkel talked to you about the commands you heard and the order of which you heard commands versus shots, right? Do you recall him asking you that?
Yes, ma'am.
Is there any doubt that you heard commands before the shots on December 4th, 2020?
I have zero doubt.
Mr. Merkel spent a lot of time talking about your radio and the components of your radio, the channels on your radio. Do you know if Jason Meade's radio is the same as yours?
I have no idea.
Mr. Merkel asked you about positionings in the kitchen, where you were positioned, where Jason Meade was positioned while this was going on, correct?
Correct.
How would you describe that scene as it was occurring, Officer Rosser?
Chaotic.
A million things going on at once?
It just times 100. It was just nonstop chaos.
Fair to say that you're focused on different things at different times?
Correct.
And all at once? Mr. Merkel spoke about the area where the gun was when you first saw the gun. Do you recall him asking you that question?
Yes, ma'am.
And I believe you said it was like in the chest area, upper pec, right?
Correct.
Same as your torso, correct?
That's correct.
May I have a moment?
Okay.
Thank you. I have no further questions.
Any redirect? Any recross? Based on those questions? All right, you can step down. Yeah, you're free to go. Ladies and gentlemen, we're going to take our lunch break. Do not discuss this case among yourselves. Do not permit anyone to discuss it with you or in your presence. It is your duty not to form or express an opinion on the case until it's finally submitted to you. And then we'll start back up at 1:30.
All rise.
Has he been there?
6 months.
Oh, okay. Wow.
Nobody, I had 4 direct bosses last year. Nobody wants to supervise me.
Yeah.
I don't know why. I give them award-winning content.